All right, shalom, shalom. It's Brother Yatazdak, Hero Israel. I'd like to start off by giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Today we're going to go into Zechariah chapter 6, going into the Hebrew. So Lord willing, you're edified, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Let's get right into it. Right, there's a vision of Zechariah, right? It's called the four chariots, right? Now, in this case, it's speaking about the four horsemen, right? Once again, just like you read about in the book of Revelation, what's that, chapter 6? Salakia. So Revelation chapter 6, right? But when you read it, right, it goes into a particular vision that Ezekiel saw, right? Which in verse 5, right, the Lord calls them the four winds, right? But it is just speaking about the purpose of these the horses, right, and their judgment that they will lay in particular regions, right? Mainly America, Babylon the Great, the Eastern Hemisphere, right, where that great horror will be judged, right, according to prophecy and scripture, right, which is why verse 1 starts off with let's get right into it. Zechariah 6:1. And I returned and I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, four chariots went out. Four chariots went out from between the two mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. Right? Let's get Zechariah. Which is what verse 1 says, right? The two mountains. So it reads, Wa Ashab, Wa Asha'a, Ayanya, Wa Ra'a, Wa Hana, Arabai, Ma Rakabath, Yataza'ath, Ma Bayan, Shanya, Haharium, Wa Haharium, Haria, Na Chashath. Those two mountains, right, represent two land masses, right, two regions, the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, right? The Western Hemisphere, where the children of Israel would be reside, mainly the remnant, and 2/3, the majority, in the land of their oppressor, America, Babylon the Great, right? So let's see. Got a little map right here, right? We're gonna go into some commentary. So here you have it right here. You have the Western Hemisphere, the Eastern Hemisphere. And you got to keep in mind, for the most part, these land masses are connected on both of these regions, for the most part. Right? Now let's look into the Bible Hub commentary to see what it says. This is Zechariah 6:1 Bible Hub commentary. And I turned and I looked. The main design of this eighth and last vision is to confirm the Jews in their faith in and dependence upon God by showing them that weak and defenseless as they seem to be, they had nothing to fear from the greatest earthly powers. Right, so this is talking about, right, the instruments of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which would be used, right, to forward prophecy in the latter days. Right, for example, you have the red horseman, which is Esau Edom, right, and his armies. You have the black horse, which represents dearth, famine, captivity. You have the pale horse, which represents calamity, right? All these things coming into a climax, right? When shit actually goes down, right? Let's read down here. And behold, there came 4 chariots, right? Here it says it's the 4 great empires, which is not correct, right? Let's read on down. They are here represented as coming from 2 mountains, because mountains are natural barriers which divide kingdoms, right? And that's what the eastern western hemisphere is, right? Which though they be strong as brass, here are supposed to be broken through by those that invade and conquer their neighbors, right? So brass, right, represents something that is it's not the strongest metal, right? As a matter of fact, brass is an alloy, meaning it's mixed with something else, right? So Nachash actually, let's see, I don't want to mangle it. Is brass and alloy. Whoop. So brass is a combination of copper and zinc, right? So that word nakash, it actually means copper, but it could also mean brass, because it's a derivative of copper. But again, the point is, let's go back to the commentary. That it's a metal that can be broken, right? Which eventually, what happened when Esau Edom, or even before him, because the indigenous people were already here, right? You had during the time of King Solomon, right? You had a particular of his men and of the heathen that he would send here, right? And gather gold, right? You had the northern kingdom scattered here in this region. So there was already other tribes here, right? Because Solomon worked with those of Tyre, right, which are of the sons of Ham, right? So some of them were already here, right, on this side of the world. But eventually there was via commercialization trade, right? Eventually that breach, those 2 regions, right, were breached, right? And kingdoms were established in time, right? So that's the main point of that, right? the mountains being of copper, right? The 4 chariots are the again, it's not talking about rulerships, it's talking about these spirits sent forth throughout the earth at a particular time, right? Zechariah 6:2. In the chariot the first were horses red, and in the chariot the second were horses black. Ba Marakaba Ha Ra'ashana Sawasium Adamium Waba Marakaba Ha Shanyath Sawasium Zechariah, right? Adam meaning red, Shachar meaning black. Zechariah 6:3. And in the chariot the third were horses white, and in the chariot the fourth were horses spotted, dappled, right? Which is, let's look at the blue letter. The blue letter calls them grizzled and bay, right? But there's a reason for that, right? But we're focusing on the three, which are the main, right? The rest are going to serve a or the last one is going to serve a particular different purpose, right? So let's pay attention and Zechariah 6:3, so it reads, Baba Marakaba Ha Shalashiath Sawasium Labanium Waba Marakaba Ha Rabayath Sawasium Baradium Amatazayum, right? So you have 3 horses. The fourth was spotted and dappled, right? Because that word barad means hail, as in, right? It's another way to say spotted. Amatazah means something that is strengthened or to strengthen oneself, right? For example, right? If you find yourself standing a long time at work, or you work at a warehouse, right? You can do squats. They help with the strength of your legs, right? Zechariah 6:4. And I answered and I said unto the angel that spoke with me, What are these, my Lord? Wa Aan Wa Amar al Ha Mala'aka Ha Dabar Baya Ma al Ha Adonai. Zechariah 6:5. And he answered the angel and he said unto me, These are the 4 spirits, or Salaki, these are the 4 winds of the heavens. They go out and stand beside the Lord of all the earth, right? Which really that should say that would be spirits, right? But they could be called winds as well, right? Because the point is that they were created to perform a particular purposes, right? That's what the King James Bible says. We're just gonna go with that, right? Wayaan ha mala'aka waya amar alia Allah Arabai, Rakath, Hashemayim, Yatazaath, Mahathayatazab, Al Adawan Kal Ha'aratazah, right? Because that word tazab means to stand, right? Uh, Another way to say it is Imad, right? Here's where it gets a little tricky. Zechariah 6:6. Which were in it, uh, which was in it the horses, black, they went out unto the land of the north, and the white went out uh, uh, unto its rear, whereas in behind it, behind the black horses, and the spotted, they went out to the land of the south, right? Now, do you have spotted horses in the Book of Revelation? No, right? Right, because uh, that spotted horse is the pale horse, the Book of Revelation, right? There's a reason why the black horse went out into the region of the north, and the white ones followed after it, right? Because the children of Israel were brought into captivity, right? Through Esau, Edom, through the red horse, which that great sword that he has been given. The white horse, or here horses, right, represents in the Book of Revelation. The white horse is the first horse that is mentioned. Just talk about Yahushai, right? Because, right, the reason why he's mentioned first is because the council, Salakia, the council of the Lord, Salakia, the council of the Lord, right? Not only is he the head, right, priest, right, after the order of Melchizedek, right, the king of Israel, right, the only begotten of the Most High God, right, but his rank has always been right, as the first begotten creation. That's why he came first, right? So the Book of Revelation doesn't necessarily always go in chronological order, right? But here the black horse is right, represents the children of Israel going into captivity in the land of the north, which is America, Babylon the Great. The white horse coming behind it, or white horses, because that represents Yahushai, the chariots of salvation, right? Here it's saying to the west of them, but it's talking about, right? They preceded the so like they succeeded the black horse, right? And as you can tell right here, this is the word for white, which is chloros, which is greenish, verdant, green, pale, dun colored, yellowish pale. So it was like a sickly horse, right? So it had spots on it. That's why it's called Baradium, and Amatazayim, right? Revelation 6:8, pale horse, right? So the Hebrew equivalent would be Baradium wa Amatazayim, right? Because they looked speckled. They looked sickly, but the Lord strengthened them, right, to perform their work as well, which is right to judge the remnant, right. So let's go to Zechariah 6:6 in the blue letter. Zechariah 6:6. Right, so here it's saying the black horses which are therein go to the north country, and the white go forth after them, and the grizzled go forth towards the south country, and the bay went forth and sought, so that might walk to and fro through the earth. Right, so now it's describing uh the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay, right? But this is actually represents one horse in the book of Revelation. Here it's two different types of horses on that fourth chariot, right? We're going to explain that in a moment, right? But let's look at some more commentary, right? Zechariah 6:6. Let's see what that says. Right, so here it says it's talking about Alexander, the Macedonians. Right, so they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're just making it up. Right? So Zechariah 6:6, right, reads Ashar Baha Ha Sawasium Ha Sacharium Yatazaayim Al Arataza Tazapan Waha Labanyum Yatazaawa Al Acharyacham Waha Baradium Yatazaawa Al Arataza Ha Tayaman. Right, so the black horses went out to the region of the north, the white ones followed. Right, the spotted ones went to the region of the south. Right, which is why it says Waha Baradium Yatazaawa Al Arataza Ha Tayaman. Tayaman is actually an actual place in the Middle East, right? The land of the region of Teman, which is one of the chief cities of Esau, but it's also right. It's another way to say south, right? So it says the spotted went out to the land of the south, but it's talking about the eastern hemisphere. Why? Because that's part of the pale horse, which is right these northern kingdoms that are right in the southern region of the Americas. They're not going to escape the judgment, right? They're gonna take the charagma. They're gonna right get destroyed, spoiled, right? Zechariah 6:7, which calls them here dappled ones, but we're just gonna say those that were strengthened. Waha amatazat, and those that were strengthened went out, and they seek to go to walk upon the earth. And he said, And he said, Go, or Salakia, surely thou shalt go upon the earth, and thou shalt walk upon the earth, right? So part of that pale horse are those that will go throughout all the earth, because the judgment is going to reach throughout all the earth, right? Because that's what's going to happen as soon as America Babylon the Great gets destroyed, right? The majority of the action is going to happen in the rest of the parts around it on the eastern hemisphere, right? So it's just talking about, right, the rest of the tribes being judged, basically, right? Nothing really too deep about that. But the rest of the horses in that fourth chariot, they went out throughout all the earth, because it's talking about, right, the third woe. It's talking about those that will be judged after they take the charagma, right, and so on and so forth, right? So it reads, Waha amatazayim yataza awa waya bakwashwa la lakath laha thahalak ba rataza waya amar lakawa hatha salakia hatha halakwa ba rataza watha thahalakna ba rataza, right? Which still, these horses represent the pale horse, calamity, destruction, right? Pale, green, sickly, spotted, it's the same thing, right? It describes the same horse, right? But it's still, the Lord strengthened it, which is why it's called a matazayim, to perform the great time which has not been since the foundation of the world, the time of great trouble, right? The culmination of all these things, right, coming unto its end, right? Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 8. And he alerted me, and he said unto me to say, See those that have gone out unto the earth, to the land of the north, have comforted unto my spirit in the land of the north, right? Or you could say it has caused my spirit to rest, right? Because that word dayach or nawach, which is where you get the Noah, right, just means rest, right? And zayak, right, means to alert. But let's look at the blue letter, get some more insight on that word. Zechariah 6 and 8. Zechariah 6 and 8. Zayak, which is taza'ak. It's the same thing. It means to cry out, to exclaim, right? To cry out, to call. So the angel cried out unto Zechariah, right, to say unto him, right, those that gone out to the land of the north had caused my spirit to rest in the land of the north. Why? Because a black horse, which represented the captivity that Israel would be placed in, right, and then their salvation, which would come after that great work that the Most High God
Yahweh Bashim Yahushai would work in these latter days, right? That's the Most High God speaking through the angel, right? Because they're going to do His pleasure and perform His word, right? Which is why in these latter days, right, we should pray without ceasing, right? And for the Lord, petition to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai to perform the word which He had spoken, right? So it says, Waya Taza'ak Athaya, Waya Dabar Alia, La Amar Ra'a, Haya Taza'ayim, Al Rataza Tazapan, Ha Nayakwa, Atha Rakaya, Ba Rataza Tazapan. Right? See how many more verses we have left. Says Zechariah 6:9, and it came to pass, spoke the Lord unto me to say, by Yahya Dabar, Yahweh Alia La Abar, Zechariah 6:10, take from the exile, take from those that are exiled, from Haldai, from Tobiah, from Jediah, and bring him in, you, in the day that is, and bring him in to the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, which have come from Babylon, right? Which these are actual men, but right there's a purpose, right, behind these names. There's a spiritual significance, right? Heldai, Chalad means a duration, right? Because the children of Israel would be in captivity for 7 years from Babylon, from the ancient Babylonian Empire, the Babylonian captivity, and also in these latter days, right, for time, and the dividing of time, right? Tobiah, right, which is Tawab, meaning good, Yah, right, meaning the goodness of the Lord, right? Jediah, meaning, right, Yadai, meaning to know, right, or known of the Lord, right? Which have these are spiritual significance behind these things, right? So they were to be presented to the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, right? I believe that word Josiah means fire of God, right? Because the remnant would be purged and right, tried, right, and brought through the fire, literally and figuratively, right? Because in that great deliverance, right, you're gonna have right, the chariots, right, beaming up the remnant, and barely the missiles hitting it during that same time, right, barely making it. Also, the Lord has said, I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction, right? Zephaniah, not only does it mean north, but it means to cover, right? Which would be Tazapanya, God has covered, right? Now let's look at the commentary for verse 10, but let's read it in the Hebrew first, which reads, Laquach ma'ath ha-galah ma-chaladia wa-ma'ath tawabia wa-ma'ath yadaya wa-ba'ath atha bayawam ha-huwa wa-ba'ath bayath Yeshaya, or Salakia Yaashia, Ban Tazapanya, Shar Ba'awa Ma Babal, right? So that word galah, right? There's that word again, right? In this case, it means exiled, right? Let's look at the Bible Hub commentary, right? Because these are actual men which lived during the time of Zechariah, right? Just so you know that we're not just saying what we want to say, right? Scriptures say to prove all things, right? Salakia. What verse is that? 10. We'll just click on this. 12, 11. So this is from Zechariah 6 and 10. Bible Hub commentary, which says, some Jews from Babylon brought an offering to the house of God. Those who cannot forward a good work by their purses must, as they are able, forward it by their purses. If some find hands, let others fill them. Crowns are to be made and to be put on the head of Joshua. The sign was used to make the promise more noticed that God will, in the fullness of time, raise up a great high priest, which is Yahushua after the order of Melchizedek, who is but the figure of one that is to come. Right. So again, that it's not a coincidence that the name Joshua is used throughout various times for notable men, because that's supposed to be a pattern of things to come, right? Of Yahushua, right? So it says, who is the figure of one that is to come. Hamashiach is not the only foundation, but the founder of this temple by his spirit and grace, right? So that's pretty much it for that. Let's go back to let's see if it speaks about these particular men. So it's just talking about men that made offerings, right? Those that returned from the captivity. Zechariah 6 and 11, and take silver and gold, and make a crown, and place it upon the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the priest, the high priest. So it reads, Wala Kwachath, Kasab, Wa Zahab, Wa Ashiath, Itarath, Wa Shamath, Ba Ra'ash, Yahushai, Ban Yahawatazadak, Ha Kahan, Ha Gadol. Right? That word Itarath, Itar, it means a wreath. It's just another way to say crown. Right? Zechariah 6 and 12, and say unto him, to say, thus has said the Lord of hosts, to say, behold the man, the branch, which is his name, and in his place, the branch, or Salaka, and in this place he shall spring up, and will build unto the temple of the Lord. Wa Amarath Aliyawa La Amar Ka Amar Yahweh Tazabawath La Amar Hana Ayash Tazamach Shamwa Wama Thachath Yawa Ya Tazamach Wa Bana Atha Hayakal Yahweh. Hayakal means a structure, right? In this case, a temple, right? Tazamach means to spring up, right? But it's here it's translated as the branch, but it would literally be translated as a sprout, right? There's another way to say sprout, which is dasha'a, right? Or you could just call it the branch, right? Which is talking about Yahushai, right? The messenger of the covenant, like it says in the book of Malachi, would appear, and there's particular things he had to perform. There's things he had to speak up on concerning the latter days events, right? So he started that the building of the temple. Not that he built it with his hands, but through his ministry, through his eternal sacrifice, right? Which is Yahushai, right? Zechariah 6:13. And he will build to the temple of the Lord, and he will bear its glory, and he shall sit and shall rule upon his throne, and will be the priest upon his throne. And the council of peace will be between both of them, meaning between Yahushai and the Most High God, right? Because they're moving on one accord, just like the Rakak Kodash, right? Which is a divine counsel of the Most High God, right? Being performed, right? Like I recently brought out at camp, the Comforter, right? Which will not speak of himself, right? These words in Scripture, they don't speak about the glory of men. They don't speak about, right, vain things, right? Not everyone is gonna get it, because this book is right, the words, the understanding is pure righteousness, right? Pure truth, right? Which is why it doesn't speak of itself. It doesn't exalt the children of Israel above the Most High God. It exalts, right, the Lord and all His works, right, which are right righteous works. You have right, but some of these things that have to happen are going to be terrible, but it's all right to glorify Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? So it says, Wa Hawa Yabana Atha Hayakol Yahweh, Wa Hawa Yasha'a Hawad, Wa Yashab Wa Bashal Al Kasa'awa, which means throne, Wa Haya Kahan Al Kasa'awa, Wa Aitazath Shalawam Thahaya Bayan Shanyaham. Zechariah 6:14. And the crowns will be unto Helem, to Tobijah, and to Jediah, and to Chan, the son of Hen, the son of Zephaniah, for remembrance in the temple of the Lord, right? Waha Itarath Thahaya La Chalam Wala Tawabia Wala Yedaya Wa Lachan Ban Tazapanya La Zakaran Baha Yakol Yahweh. Now let's look at the commentary for this verse. Zechariah 6 and 10. Salakia 14. I'm bugging. Through the spirit of Yahweh Shemel Shai, Lord willing, this is edifying. Verse 14. But again, there's a spiritual significance behind these names, right? The name always represented one's purpose, right? There was a purpose, right, for each particular name given, right? Represented not just a purpose, but a reputation, right? Zechariah 6 and 14, and the crown shall be to Helem, and to Tobijah, and to Jediah, to hand the son of Zephaniah for a memorial into the temple of the Lord. In the temple of the Lord, right? You have Helem, meaning a dream. Tawabia, meaning the goodness of the Lord. Yediah, known of the Lord. Chan, meaning grace, right? Which is Hen, the son of Zephaniah, which is Tazapanya, meaning God has covered, right? These are actual men, right? Now I'm not going to say it represents the remnant in these latter days, but because that would be kind of stretching it. But right, not everything is super deep. These are just men that were there during the rebuilding of the temple after the Babylonian captivity, right? So it says of these persons we know no more with any certainty than their names for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. Though this verse in its literal sense may refer to the Jews who lived in distant parts and other artificers coming to Jerusalem to assist in building the material temple, yet in its mystical and ultimate meaning it refers to the conversion of the Gentiles to Hamashiach, to that true people, the Christian church, and helping to erect, enlarge, and beautify, which thousands and myriads of the Gentiles have cooperated and still more, right? So I was proved wrong, right? It does represent the remnant, right? So there you have it, right? A mystical meaning, right? Zechariah 6 and 15. And those afar off shall enter and will build the temple of the Lord. And thou shalt know because the Lord of hosts has sent me unto you. And it will come to pass if surely thou shalt hear in the voice of the Lord your God. Right? So it says, Ra Salakia Wa Rachakium Yaba'a Wa Bon Wa Ba Hayakol Yahweh Wa Yadai Thum Kaya Yahweh Tazabawath Shalachnaya Aliyakam Wa Haya Im Shamai Ta Shamai Wan Bakwal Yahweh Alahayakam, which is talking about those coming from afar, right? Is talking about those that are preaching his word in these latter days, which happened back then, right? There was a coming together to rebuild the second temple, but in these latter days as well, which is a spiritual temple, right? Which is those that are going out on the highways and byways, right? Preaching the word, right? Making these things known, doing the sit downs, right? Going into the Hebrew, going into the Greek, right? And those that are taking part in these sufferings of the remnant, which is going to be the remnant, right? The same sufferings that are talked about of Yahushai, right? And be despised of all men, right? The servant is not greater than his master. All these things are to what, right? To fulfill the things written, right? So with that, that's pretty much it. The Zechariah chapter 6, going into the Hebrew, it's Brother Yatazadak, hero of Israel. And as always, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Kwame Yasha'Allah, Abad Babal, and Shalom.